the events following Dragon Ball Super's Tournament of Power and the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie, with the element of a new powerful antagonist stepping out of the limelight and onto the main stage and posing a huge danger to our heroes. One of the main arguments and debates going around in the Dragon Ball fandom right now is the idea of who exactly would win between Universe 7's God of Destruction Beerus and Universe 7's Eater of Worlds Moro. And although the opinions of many will be divisive, we welcome you to drop your thoughts in the comments section below of who you believe would win in a circumstance involving both Beerus and Moro having to battle in an unrestricted fight, as we are going to go further in depth in breaking down the battle between Moro and Beerus, as we are only going to be using the manga version of Beerus and not the animes, only because they simply scale different by comparison. So, joining me here today to further discuss the concept of both Beerus versus Moro is Taurus Silver over on Twitter and Dragon Ball YouTuber Emish. Now, a quick little reminder in case you guys are new to the channel, hit that subscribe button and give this video a big fat thumbs up if you guys simply want to see this battle go down, because ever since Moro's introduction in having to resemble that of Baphomet and having to pose a very big threat to our heroes in one of many different ways, a lot of people within the Dragon Ball community, other creators, vloggers, fans, so many people had their own opinions on this specific battle right here and what it would actually be like to see Beerus throw down against Moro. So we've previously covered the premise of Jiren versus Moro, as of course you guys can see on screen, to where you guys can find that video link and debate located down in the description box below. That video was basically an entire analytical breakdown on the circumstance involving Jiren and Moro, but here we have something a little bit different here. So Emish has Moro and Taurus has Beerus, so I want to go ahead and kick things off with you, Taurus, and asking you, if we did have a circumstance go down, right, involving Moro 7-3 specifically, whether or not he has the ability to copy is really up to you at this point, but if we did have a circumstance involving Moro versus Beerus, particularly the Beerus that we've seen throw down against the other destroyers in the Dragon Ball Super manga, then in your opinion, why is it that you believe that Beerus would have the edge and even potentially defeat Moro in this battle if they were to throw down?
When it comes to like hacks in Dragon Ball, it's specifically if you are stronger than the other person, hacks usually don't matter, but there are certain character traits that can change. So Beerus in the manga kind of doesn't have much other than he tried to fight Goku and Vegeta, and those are two obviously sparring matches, quote unquote, and the only time he's been put in like a death match is against like the Gods of Destruction. And when he's put in that life or death situation, we were told by Cedra and the rest of the Gods of Destruction that he was actually just straight up trying to kill them all. So if we go from that perspective, that in a life or death situation, which is what I'm assuming Moro and Beerus would be if they were to meet, it would be a life or death situation, then it would be with the intent of Beerus just trying to kill him from the start. Because he doesn't have that whole, oh, I want you to be my rival type of thing like he wanted with Goku and Vegeta. Then it comes down to, can he actually kill Moro? Is he strong enough to do that? And if you're of the opinion that Merus absolutely stops Beerus and things like that, and the level of strength that he used in the fight against Moro, with his staff and everything, that's all beyond Beerus, like if you're of that opinion, then I suppose you could give that to win to Moro. But I sort of view it in a bit more of a skeptical type of way. I was talking to Emish about this earlier before we started this, but when Merus' body is fading away, it's half of his body is already starting to sort of erode and things like that. And in Dragon Ball, we know that the key is the enhancement of your body. It enhances your body, and that's what makes you strong. If your body is being erased, or you're between erasure and life and death and things like that, existing or not existing, then what is being amplified is a weakened state. So that's why I think maybe perhaps Merus is weakened, and this is like something that's the anime likes to try and portray this with like Zamasu and things like that. When his body is collapsing, they're saying, oh, he's weakened, and that's why like Goku and Vegeta can take hits from him. That's why Trunks beat him with the Genki sword. With fusions, they say, oh, they're fat, they're skinny, fat and skinny fusions. They're failed fusions because their bodies can't handle the powers, because body does matter when it comes to your power. So I do think Merus went all out in that last attack because he was tired from it, but I also think that he was weakened as well because he was on the verge of erasure. Being erased is worse than death, so if you were to put a half-dead guy against Moro, would you say that he's at full power? Would you say a guy that's being in between erasure and existing, would you say he's at full strength? That's a question that needs to be answered. The way that I look at it, preponderance of evidence, I would say that Beerus is currently stronger in this situation. Beerus is currently a lot stronger. There are a few other arguments that I'd want to address later on, but I'll let Emish take the turn for now.
When you scale these two characters, I understand Chapter 64 does a lot to hurt Moro's image, mainly because of his character portrayal for the most part, right? Like he's crying for his life, etc. So naturally, people are like, "Oh, well, that's it. He's automatically weaker than everybody," and that's fine, right? But when you look at the series, when you look at the manga specifically, and you take what we know about said characters, what can be implied about said characters based on what we know, and then you use that to kind of create like some kind of hypothesis, right? And use that to kind of say, well, okay, this is what I believe and this is why I believe it. So with Moro scaling versus Beerus, we know Jiren's above all the gods, right? And we do know that one of the more common arguments I can see like most people would make, and it's one of the more like traditional arguments that that I imagine people would start off with, is this, which is Jiren kind of like goes semi-full power / full power roughly, right? As a response to UI Omen Goku before he masters Ultra Instinct and the Terminator Power. And essentially it's that if that power is what surpasses the Gods of Destruction, it doesn't necessarily imply that UI Omen Goku at that point surpassed the Gods of Destruction, but it simply just means that Jiren went full power to kind of, neg Goku at that point, right? Because he was kind of frustrated with him. Goku was kind of like talking about being calm and like, oh, you're getting chatty and all this other crap. And Jiren is just like ultra chat who just doesn't like take that shit. So, absolute strength, etc., based on his character. And then he goes full power or whatever. And then as a response to kind of like neg UIM and Goku, but then Goku just, masters Ultra Instinct and just like dicks him down for a while and until Jiren like catches up, etc. So just based on that scaling, if that level of power is roughly what surpassed Gods of Destruction, including Beerus, then you would kind of have to assume that based on Dragon Ball Super's progression in terms of power, because that's all that literally matters, that naturally now UIM and Goku is stronger than that one, right? And you would just apply that to kind of Moro one-shotting that Goku essentially. But I think it's a little more complicated than that, because there are other like variables and modifiers and scenarios that took place throughout that kind of like, that you can use to substantiate an argument in Beerus' favor. But for the most part, it really just comes down to, okay, well, what kind of power is required to beat Moro, right? And that is for sure a power that surpasses Gods of Destruction, point blank period. So it really comes down to, if you are of the belief that UI Omen now, right, supersedes whatever from the Terminator Power, or is at least equal to it, then for sure Moro slaps. If you are of the belief that Dragon Ball Super's power, it's very linear in terms of power progression, then based on what we know of Beerus currently, Moro slaps. And to touch up on a point that Taurus mentioned, like in regards to like the Zen exhibition match, right, with the Gods of Destruction in the manga, Cedra does make the statement that, oh, is Beerus trying to kill us all? Well, I mean, they're told that they can't hold back, essentially. Like, they're not allowed to intentionally hold back. So naturally, Cedra making the statement, is he trying to kill us? It's point blank period. Like, it just means he's fodder, right? That's all. Like, if that blast was gonna kill him and like everybody else behind him or whatever, Cedra could just be referencing himself and like gods of destruction that are like, equivalent to him or relevant to him roughly. But naturally, the kind of MO was for them to not hold back. And if any gods of destruction were holding back, they would be erased on the spot. Though Belma does kind of like take an attack and refuse to get back up and continue to fight. So that's also kind of questionable as well. But the scaling as far as like power progression in Dragon Ball Super, especially the manga, just kind of favors Moro at this point. So there's really not much to really discuss, like Hakai and all this other garbage. Like, it's been kind of dictated that if you are stronger than that, like Taurus mentioned, you can just like, neg it or not really give a shit. But they could just have it to where Beerus, Goku just now surpassed Beerus, and now it's just like we're back to square one with all this scaling. It's just a mess. So I wouldn't rule that out as a possibility. But based on like the scaling, you look at the power that's required to beat Moro, and like Moro does have a habit of massively suppressing himself. So I usually say suppressing, and I tell this to Taurus all the time. He has a habit of suppressing or massively suppressing himself to his opponents, mainly because he intends to eat them rather than to kill them immediately. And he kind of references like how Beerus would just like take it seriously from the get-go, like as a reference like this is an exhibition match. And we do know Beerus to not really be like that, like as shown with obviously Battle of Gods, and then as shown as against Master Super Saiyan Blue Vegeta. So when he considers like someone who is like a rival to him or like a challenge, he's likely not inclined to kind of take it seriously right off the get-go, up until he gets pissed off, and then he just like one-shots you. So that's pretty consistent with his character portrayal so far, as far as like the manga's concerned, and especially for the anime too. Like Beerus he's a cat, he's a jokester. He likes to play around with his food essentially, and Moro is essentially the same way. So what it comes down to is who is just flat out stronger, and based on like the scaling, based on what we've seen so far, I think it favors Moro for sure.
I think it's an interesting concept because we've never really seen Beerus do anything of the sorts to really put himself in a situation to where he fought people that are either stronger than him, such as an example, Jiren, Moro, you know, stuff like that. So I think that Beerus is being, you know, still used as a benchmark for certain characters, or at least like a goalpost like Goku, as a reference and indicating, hey, since you've never defeated me, you're not the strongest, right? So what I wanted to ask you, Taurus, is let's say as an advantage trait for both characters, would you say that Moro's magic would benefit him so much more against Beerus in using that against him, or would you also concede to the idea that Beerus would be stronger or weaker than Moro? So when it comes down to pure power, speed, durability, techniques, and overall usage of their abilities, such as Moro with his magic, who would you give the edge over in when it comes down to power, speed, and who would you say would have the advantage in this battle when looking at their overall traits, when looking at their overall abilities and stats, in giving an overall objective answer to the battle involving the two?
When it comes to the categories that Moro would edge out in, it's definitely the magic absorption category. The whole idea that he absorbs people's strength to get stronger, right? That's why it's really important to distinguish whether Beerus was just beat it from the start, or would it let it drag out, as every Moro argument works. You know, like in the Zenix submission match I mentioned earlier, that Beerus was going, you know, trying to kill them and things like that. But we also know that at the start of the match, all the gods of destruction tried to attack Beerus and they couldn't touch him. And then later on, that we're shown that all the gods of destruction are all injured and everything like that. They're kind of shown relative. So it's like, sure, they were told not to hold back, but it seems like they all did hold back in the end, because they, you know, at first Beerus flexed on all of them, and then after that they were all roughly relative. So, you know, either they got stronger or they just weren't going all out. And you know, when Beerus's existence is put on the line, which is kind of what Moro is meant to be. Like, Moro is literally said to be this guy who goes around eating planets, and his enemies are the Kais, right? The Kaioshin, the Kais, and all them, right? And that would kind of put Beerus's life in danger, because obviously he has a connection with Kai. So it'd be like, not getting rid of Moro will lead to the Kaioshin getting involved some way or another, because that is the lore of Moro. The Kaioshin, the gods, they had to get involved the last time. And we also kind of know that Beerus learned from this mistake when he was told in the Goku Black Arc that his future variant died because Shin got involved with MajinBlue and things like that. So I think Beerus would be a bit more aware of things like that in the future. But when it comes to like speed, power, durability, and all that thing, for now I am going to give it to Beerus, because I see the whole Ultra Instinct Omen greater than MUI sort of point going around. I was like, sure, that's possible. You know, it's, you know, anything's possible when it comes to power scaling. But like, where's the concrete evidence for it? Like, where's the good meat that says it is stronger, right? Because I've seen like this speed argument, like Ultra Instinct Omen, whilst suppressed, is faster than the one from the TOP. It's like, you know, have you watched Dragon Ball? Do you know how speed feats work? When, you know, when a character doesn't see another person, there are determining factors. So it doesn't mean that they're always drastically stronger than the other. Because like, for one, after Moro and Goku fight in their first battle, well, young Moro and Ultra Instinct Moro, Saiyan Goku, things like that. Piccolo and Gohan can't see him when Goku is blitzing around, but when they actually start fighting, they can see them totally fine. And then, you know, Toyotaro lets us know that, oh, they disappeared again, which means that they could see them earlier, right? When they were first, Goku appears out of nowhere, then they see him fight, then he disappears again, right? That means there's an instance where they saw them fight, and then, you know, as the fights get stronger and stronger, Gohan and Piccolo are still commenting on the fights as if they can see them perfectly fine. So it's just like, you know, if they're getting stronger and faster as the series progresses, and, you know, quote unquote, Omen's meant to be faster, then what's going on? Why can these characters suddenly see them? And it's just like, well, in original Dragon Ball, we're told that being able to sense someone's ki is important to being able to locate their sort of movements and whereabouts. You know, that's why the androids had an advantage back in the day and things like that. So, you know, the whole speed argument is like very shaky, and to me is actually quite a flawed point. So I don't think power goes to Moro, and it's like, where does Moro get that solid concrete scaling above Beerus? When does he get that? Because it's like, Omen in the Tournament of Power, you know, it could be God of Destruction, but is it? You know, Omen in the Moro arc, it could be stronger than Beerus, but is it? You know, Goku, when he beats the shit out of Moro in Master Ultra Instinct, he could be using above Beerus levels of power, but where is that proof? Where is that proof that he is using Beerus levels of power? Where is that proof that Moro overcame Beerus levels of power, right? That's the thing that I'm really looking for, which I just don't see it right now. Like, even with the Merus scaling I talked about earlier, there just isn't the concrete evidence for Moro to be stronger and faster and more durable or whatever. And I think it just comes down to, in my opinion, it comes down to two different things. Whether you believe Moro is above the Gods of Destruction and he like scales above Merus and things like that, and whether you believe that Moro 7-3, like Moro 7-3, the cocky one, that he would use the absorption magic straight away, he would definitely resort to using the gems on his hand. I heard a point at somebody saying that the gems won't work on Beerus. I was like, pretty headcanon to me. There's nothing that indicates that Moro can't copy Gods of Destruction. I don't know where anybody got that idea from. I'm pretty sure he can if he wanted to. But, you know, Beerus does have his own form of Ultra Instinct. He does have a level of Ultra Instinct. So, granted, he did tap Merus on the neck, but, you know, Merus was somewhat distracted and talking to Goku, and it's arguable whether he was using Ultra Instinct at that point, you know, at that exact instance in time. So, I think when it comes to power, speed, and even, you know, Beerus having a level of Ultra Instinct to dodge Moro's attacks and things like that, I think I give Beerus the edge on pretty much everything other than the factor that, you know, if the fight drags out too long, then that's when Moro gets the advantage due to his magic.
All right, so touch up on something Taurus mentioned. His opening statement was more so in regards to Beerus, a favorability for Beerus, if anything, right? Because he is arguing for him. So he mentions how Cedric notes that, well, is he trying to kill us all? And then in his second statement, he says how it seems like there's a gap between them because Beerus is like dodging 11 gods, etc. You know, it's 11 versus 1 essentially. But then towards the end, they seem to be relative, so it suggests that they did hold back. Well, I mean, you know, to open up with the killing statement first and then come in and suggest that, well, it seems like they were holding back. That while that could be true, right? It could likely be the case. It's more of a detriment to Beerus because it no longer suggests that he's like above the other gods when he's clearly been showcased to be. Like, so it's not even a matter of scaling Beerus to other gods of destruction. Because if we are of the belief that Beerus is the strongest god of destruction, right, then it doesn't matter what happens with the other 11, essentially. So there's that. And then to touch up on like the whole like moral scaling, I'm not gonna reference the Merus thing only because like he understands my viewpoints of that. I understand his viewpoints of that. I did a video talking about that. It's interesting mainly because for characters like Goku and Vegeta, right, and characters and oppositions of Goku and Vegeta, right? Typically, when you get stronger, you get faster, and when you get faster, it's usually a clear indication that you've gotten stronger as well, because it's always referenced in power to. It's always referenced as this is the power that I've gained to defeat said enemy or said opposition, and with power gained also translates to speed. So while I do agree that the speed argument is somewhat shaky because narratively, I don't think that they would have Omen surpassing MUI simply because MUI is like their like bread and butter at this point. So narratively, I do agree that it is a shaky argument. So there's that. But typically, when a power is gained to defeat said opposition, it usually translates to I've gotten faster as well naturally because of Dragon Ball Super's linear power progression for the most part. Now, in regards to the scaling, it comes down to Jiren essentially again. So Jiren, and in reference to like power and speed, for example, right? If Jiren powers up because he can't touch UIM and Goku, then naturally as he powers up, he gets faster, right? There's no reason to power up if you can't, because you can't touch your opponent, right? So Jiren powers up in response to Goku again, UIM and Goku in the Tournament of Power, and Goku's actually stated to have He's shown to have blocked attacks from Jiren. Now, granted, that wasn't a full power Jiren, but there is emphasis here that even if the power gap at that point between Jiren and Goku was so substantial, Goku blocking attacks is kind of a feat. It's a strength feat, if anything, or it's a feat for Ultra Instinct, even Omen, simply because Whis does state that he's able to avoid his vitals, therefore mitigating a lot of the damage received that he normally would receive if Jiren had hit him head on, right? So if Jiren intends to hit him in the gut and Goku blocks, boom, he's able to mitigate some of the damage received, right? So obviously Goku, he can't be touched. Jiren powers up, therefore, because he powered up, he got stronger. And then the issue there is that Jiren does charge at Goku, but the issue there is that Goku masters Ultra Instinct, and we know that the power gap between Ultra Instinct Omen and between MUI is clearly substantial. It's a substantial difference, so there's no definitive way to gauge these characters accurately other than using what has been portrayed so far. So it would be Jiren powering up simply because he could not ensure a W over Ultra Instinct Omen Goku. I'm not suggesting that Omen Goku was stronger than Jiren, because obviously that's not the case. But what I'm simply saying is that in reference to the speed argument, that Jiren had to do something as a response, right? It wasn't like he chose to do it because he's just trying, whatever. It was a response to Goku's progression at that point. And then you just apply that to like the obvious linear progression that Dragon Ball Super portrays, especially the manga, and then again, it still favors Moro. So from a logical standpoint, again, narratively, they could still have it to where Beerus would just cockslap him. Taurus did mention that, Moro is like the enemy of the Kais, etc. And if that is of the belief, which is, largely true to some extent, like he is the enemy of gods, right? Yet Beerus has never taken it like upon himself to get involved in any way, shape, or form. And again, that's a narrative plot point, right? That obviously, if he did get involved, then it would just be too easy, and then it would just ruin the scaling going forward. But ultimately, if the argument is that Moro is an enemy of the Kais, and therefore Beerus would take it seriously, well, at that point, it wouldn't matter, because if Beerus is already stronger, Moro being an enemy of the Kais is irrelevant, simply because Beerus is stronger. So it just feels like these are just more circumstantial arguments used to kind of portray why Beerus should theoretically be above. And while that could be the case, again, much like he referenced, it's possible, anything is possible in Dragon Ball Super, it seems highly unlikely. So you have the scaling going for Moro in Moro's favor, essentially, and then you have the fact that he does have abilities. Moro, again, he only uses these abilities as a means of either A, getting stronger, or B, when he's at a disadvantage. So the copy ability is something he uses typically when he's at a disadvantage, and that's shown versus Merus, for example, but not so much versus Vegeta. He already had the advantage for Vegeta, and at that point he was just flexing on Vegeta and everybody else to showcase, okay, that now I have Vegeta's abilities now and they're permanent. So now you guys can't fuse according to Piccolo. That makes no sense whatsoever. So Moro's portrayal is very circumstantial, and his clear intent is to constantly get stronger. And he's never really been shown to have any limit whatsoever. And that's he has a limit in terms of like mid combat, but as far as how strong he could theoretically become, there's no actual limit to that. Other than plot and like narrative selling, Moro appears to have a cap right now, but again, had he absorbed Vegeta's energy, Goku's energy currently, etc., there would be no cap to his power, essentially. But I'm not trying to use like the no limits fallacy. I'm just simply showcasing that Moro mid-combat is typically different, and he massively suppresses himself to his opponents, essentially. So he would want to eat Beerus, obviously. So if Beerus is flat out weaker than Moro, it doesn't matter if Beerus is going all out. Moro's going to suppress himself to his opponent, wear him down, and then eventually just absorb his energy anyway. So the topic of Bloodlust, to me, is irrelevant, only because Moro already has the scaling going in his favor. And I'll just close off by saying that magic abilities are, again, tend to be something that can be negated. So, for example, if you have UI levels of speed, which Beerus obviously has, right? He's fast as shit. He could obviously dodge the energy absorption, right? So it wouldn't be much of a factor, which is why Moro wears you down first and then absorbs you after you're defeated, which is something he states versus UI Omen Goku before Moro will suggest that to UI Goku. He says, I'll absorb energy after you're defeated. So it's that scaling is very consistent with Moro. The only thing that's not consistent with Moro is his dialogue, essentially.
I honestly think that this fight would really come down to if Moro would be able to absorb or copy any of Beerus' abilities or take his power, because I think that's very important considering how far he's went when battling Goku and Vegeta and having to subconsciously take their power and then blatantly getting behind them, grabbing them by the back of the neck, having to do several things that worked in his favor by the very end, because when Moro was first introduced, he wasn't labeled or looked at as being as fearsome as Broly or Jiren, but he was very cunning when it came down to his magical abilities and his overall cunning nature, because I've said this before, a very dangerous Moro is a very desperate Moro. So what do you think, Taurus, would be the right circumstance or the right hypothetical in getting these two involved against each other? Because what's interesting about Beerus, and I think we've seen this before, is he really doesn't tend to get involved in anything, which I think is a good thing, because you don't want to use Beerus as like a bailout or like a cop-out for certain things. So I think that unless someone were to provoke him, unless something were to directly affect him, only then could he get involved. But what I wanted to ask you is, what would be the circumstance, in your opinion, in having these two actually link up for the first time in waging battle against one another, in allowing Beerus to actually feel like he's threatened or his position is threatened, in forcing him finally into combat?
To be honest, it's so circumstantial. Like, you could make up loads of different hypothetical scenarios. You could really do like, MajinBlue shows up and he turns into Dai Kaioshin, and Shin shows up and goes, shit, it's my master, let me go say hi to him and shit like that, and then, then it becomes like a dangerous situation for Beerus, and that's why he gets involved or something like that. Or it could just be like, as you said earlier, maybe he just wants to flex for a bit after Whis provokes him, saying that, maybe Goku surpassed you, alright, let me show you otherwise, or something like that. I think narrative does come in quite importantly. It's just like, well, let's get this out of the way. Ultra Instinct Goku in this arc should be stronger than Ultra Instinct Goku from the Tournament of Power, right? We accept that. His base form is stronger, that means his transformations are stronger. Everyone accepts that fact. But it's questionable if Goku's using this maximum said level of power to dick on Moro. Like, we covered this in the Moro versus Jiren thing. Like, Goku is flexing on Moro, not trying to kill him, right? That's not a feat for Moro. We don't know what that is yet. We can't quantify what that means yet. And until we do, I think that's the shaky portion. So when it comes to like other arguments, like the whole transcending gods argument, I feel like that's still an important thing to look over, because before that statement is made, Moro does say, Son Goku, from our last encounter, from our previous encounter, I have been filled with enough power to transcend the gods. And when Goku fought Moro last, it's still when he had his goatee on. He hadn't become young yet, so which means he hadn't regained his physical powers yet. And when he does become young, he says, well, in regards to just my physical appearance and physical strength, that's pretty much back to normal, implying there are other things that he hasn't got back yet, like his power and such. So I definitely think the transcending god statement, I do think that it's in reference to Kaioshin only, or Dai Kaioshins. People are saying that he already surpassed the Dai Kaioshin earlier, but yes, he surpassed, Dai Kaioshin possessing Buu, but Moro makes it very explicit. He says, did something happen to you over these years? You're not as impressive as you were 10 million years ago. So that's implying that Dai Kaioshin was actually stronger than in the past when he fought against Moro. And then, when we actually look at the opening chapter of the arc, we're told that that the Dai Kaioshin used a lot of his power and actually got weaker as a result of that. So, there is a case for him just saying, when he says he's now transcended the gods, I think that is more in reference to him surpassing the Dai Kaioshin in his prime, and regaining that power that he once used to have. And I think another thing to sort of cover is the whole Ultra Instinct is perfected Ultra Instinct. Goku's perfected Ultra Instinct, therefore he's automatically stronger. Like Merus said, it is more stable, it's automatically stronger. It's like, we're not reading the same manga at this point, because yes, Whis says it's perfected now, but he also said it was perfected against Jiren as well. He says it in both instances that they're perfected. Yes, it's more stable now, but we were also told that instability causes stamina drain. So, does being more stable increase your power, or just does it make your stamina more efficient? Because Whis explained earlier, Ultra Instinct Sign is very unstable and it drains through stamina way more than, the master or perfected Ultra Instinct form does. So now that it's more stable, then, it means stamina's better. There's nothing that indicates that his strength increased just because it's more stable. Nothing in the show implies that. So I think that's important to go over. But I think if you try to build this this narrative that Moro is stronger or should be stronger than the Gods of Destruction, then sure, you'd give that to him. But I think in terms of how shaky Moro's evidence is for a lot of these things, like you could always say something against the points that are like, oh, Moro scales above Omen Goku, who's above the gods. Like, well, is Omen Goku above the god? Can you check? Can you prove that? Can you do this? Can you do that? Like, his scaling is too shaky for above the Gods of Destruction, and obviously that would include Beerus, who's the top tier, at least to most people. So I think if the strength advantage is in Beerus's favor, then he'll probably just try to win as soon as he can, because Moro doesn't really have there's no interest in Moro, things like that. We're only shown that Beerus sort of messes about with people who he sees as potential rivals. I'm not sure why Beerus would ever look at Moro as a potential rival. He doesn't, he hasn't said anything about Moro being a potential rival now. Why would he suddenly consider him a potential rival when he decides to fight him? It's weird. So I think if Beerus starts off from the get-go, I think the power advantage is in his favor, and so he would one-shot. If you're of the belief he's stronger and that he has the magic and hacks advantage, things like that, then Moro could win in that regard.
I guess to talk about like when Moro talks to the Daikaio, or Buu Daikaio, whatever, about being unimpressive. Did something happen to you the past 10 million years because this is unimpressive? He also references that his own power has now exceeded his own, so his previous abilities, like i.e. the MajinBlue abilities, right? How he could like regenerate and like do all sorts of weird stuff. It no longer troubles him. So it's just in reference to like that. I mean, obviously half of the power or a portion of the power, because Moro does state, like the English translations do state, that Moro says, I don't sense the same god power you once had within you, and I dare say you lack the power to, fire off the sealing spell. And if it was just left at that, it would be a direct indication to like, well, okay, like raw power, like the Daikaio is insane. And I still do think that the Daikaio is insane. And then you have like, we get like the memory thing, and Moro is allowed to like see, the Daikaio, Buu's memories, etc. And then we get confirmation that that god power, like it was destroyed along with Buu. Now it's not really quantifiable, right? But it just obviously means that it would have given the Daikaio a clear advantage versus the current Moro that he was facing, right? And Blue Goku and Vegeta also go on to state that Moro just got stronger, because that is around the time Moro does get strong, because he eats ki blasts and stuff like that. And they say that at this rate, he'll be too much for us to handle soon, right? So it still implies that current Blue Goku and Vegeta are still stronger than the current Moro. So it's not inherently, like in itself, a feat in favor of the Daikaio, or like the whole Kaioshin argument, like, oh, Moro's only enemies are the Daikaoshin, like, or the Kaioshin. Naturally, when he says that he's gained powers to transcend the very gods, he would, we would think that, okay, well, if it's not talking about God of Destruction, obviously, not based on who he's fighting, i.e. Goku, it's in reference to the strongest god that Moro has fought at the time, right? Which would be the Grand Daikaio in his prime, at his peak, which would be substantially stronger than even the Buu Daikaio that was facing off against Goat Moro, like the goatee Moro. Like, he wasn't like old, but he was still kind of old. Like, he had a little bit of a goatee, etc. But even then, Blue Goku and Vegeta was still stronger in terms of power. The only thing kind of separating that gap was Moro's abilities and his magic, etc., which has been the whole primary focus up until Moro retains his youth, essentially, or up until he's preparing to fight against Goku and Vegeta, right? So up until that point, it's not like inherently a feat to suggest that, well, Daikaio was this strong, therefore he was also God of Destruction tier. It's very possible, only because of the scaling of Caesar, for example. I consider Caesar to be like the most fodder of the bunch. Another reference to that would be like when they witnessed Goku and Toppo fighting, and he suggested that, well, this fighting is already at our level, and I didn't take it at Iwan, Iwan, and I didn't take it like Iwan was suggesting that, well, hey, it's at our level, like all the gods of destruction. I took it more as like a comparison to himself, if anything. But it also, there are, and I guess to touch upon that, ultimately what we come to the conclusion we come to find out is that there are a lot of like shakiness, a lot of inconsistencies, especially when it comes to like gauging god of destruction tier characters. What we can agree on is that these characters are strong. And I guess ultimately what it comes down to is that we've had numerous amount of characters confirmed to be greater than Beerus, and suddenly now being greater than Beerus by a portion of the fandom is treated as some kind of a feat. Vegeta Blue did it in the Goku Black arc, right? Daikao could have been God of Destruction tier, right? I think Moro's done it. There's Broly and Jiren. There's Broly, Jiren, there's Gogeta Blue, there's MUI Goku, there's MUI Goku now. So it's not that much of an impressive feat. And I'm not trying to like give you the whole, well, Moro came after all these guys, therefore he's stronger than Beerus. No, it's just more so that it's no longer that impressive, which is why this kind of verse battle really bothers me. Anything with Beerus really bothers me, mainly because their narrative, the actual scaling, everything that has to do with Gods of Destruction, Dragon Ball Super is a complete mess, and I'll just leave it at that.
I just had like one final point, just a small point to add on to that. It's just with all these characters that have scaled above the Gods of Destruction and whatnot, but like they all have like this statement or some sort of evidence. Like Vegeta Blue, Shin says he surpassed Beerus, and then we got the guide confirming that. Jiren, right? It's like Jiren is stronger than a Gods of Destruction. We've got a guide confirming he's stronger than all of them. The anime guides literally tear into that, saying he's stronger than all of them. We've got Broly, Goku says Broly is stronger than Beerus. We've got a few guys saying that his power is above a God of Destruction. And obviously Gogeta and, MUI Goku, they scale to all that. Like, they have, like, this really obvious, solid evidence that they just scaled to Beerus or above him. Like, one of the two. Then you just come to Moro, and it's just like, well, what's going on here? Well, where is that evidence? Where's that statement? Where's that solid scaling? And it's, I think that just really puts a question mark in my book, at least. So when it comes to that type of scaling, I think it's a bit of a question mark, and because of that question mark, I give it to the preponderance, which is to Beerus.
Touching up on the point, like, okay, Goku's base is stronger, therefore his transformations are stronger, right? Again, it just comes down to you scale that to determine power. It's not to suggest Omen is stronger than MUI or is equivalent to MUI. Like, obviously the gap is so substantial that even then there isn't enough evidence outside of the speed thing, which we've agreed to is shaky, right? There's some consistency, but there's a lot of inconsistency to it as well. But naturally, it's just Jiren. I think the best way to do it is just to scale it off of Jiren powering up versus Omen Goku. So if Goku's naturally stronger than that, if we agree that he's stronger than that, and Moro's one-shotting that, at least there is an agreement that we can agree on that Moro, if he's not greater than God of Destruction, he certainly is relative to it. And then that's Goat Moro, by the way. That's not even Moro 7.3 yet. In order to quantify the jump from Goat Moro to Moro 7.3, Goat Moro, even though he held his own versus UI Omen Goku, obviously it was depicted for them to look like they were somewhat evenly matched in a sense, but just Moro had more going for him, right? Like Goku couldn't sustain himself, etc., etc. As to where with Moro 7.3, it's like no contest. He's one-shotting UI Sign Goku, and then he's actually fighting Merus in his suppressed state, which is leagues above UI Omen Goku. We know that Merus in his suppressed state, forget his powered-up state, Merus in his suppressed state is substantially above that. So again, it's just like if you are of the belief that even that Merus would clap Tournament of Power level characters, or Merus is above Beerus, for example, then there you go. You just scale it off of that too. So again, it's just like logically, I think logic kind of applies to Moro. And as far as like why it hasn't been stated as to why Moro has surpassed Beerus, blah blah blah. If we look at characters that have been compared to it, it's usually done in a circumstantial or a certain kind of scenario. So for example, Vegeta Blue, could this power surpass Beerus? But then there's some kind of like monkey wrench in there that's thrown in there. He defuses. Okay, so now it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter if he surpassed him, it's irrelevant. Zamasu wasn't on that tier, right? Vegeta Blue was probably like substantially above that, but he's dicking on Zamasu. So we can clearly see that if Beerus were to fight Zamasu, Beerus would completely dick down Zamasu, no difficulty. Then you have Jiren coming in, right? So now it's just like, okay, so now Vegeta Blue from the Black Arc is like Jiren tier, and Jiren tier and vice versa, up until he goes full power, and then Goku gets MUI, and now it's like, okay, well, now Jiren and both MUI Goku have finally surpassed. Forget Beerus, because Vegeta did it in the Goku Black Arc. So now the term should be, oh my god, Jiren and MUI Goku are stronger than Vegeta Blue in the Goku Black Arc. So I'm just trying to kind of explain why being compared to Beerus is completely irrelevant. And to me, it's personally no longer a feat, simply because characters have been shown, and if not stated, they have been shown to have surpassed that level of power already, just based on who they're fighting. So it doesn't really necessarily have to be stated. We do know that if you're fighting someone, then that's just enough to kind of gauge it from there. But I think being stated that you're stronger than Beerus is no longer a feat to me personally. But for the sake of the video, it is a good point. So I'll acknowledge that much.
This has been nearly a 40-minute discussion, and it's interesting because I feel like, to add in and to close this off, Beerus is a character that really wasn't displayed to do much in the anime. In the manga, he's done a lot. I think it's circumstantial to see how he fought against the other gods, and just seeing him be a bit more useful, but I think in this fight against Moro, it's safe to say that with the current elements involved, I think I would stand the ground and say that Moro would perhaps have the edge over Beerus. Of course, I think that it's so easy to say that if Beerus were to use the Hakai, it's done. I've seen other content creators, I've seen Geekdom, Revolution, so many other content creators, fans suggest one over the other, which is okay because I think that's what grounds a stance, and I think that's what grounds a person having to believe what they believe. I think that Moro is someone that really can't be undermined like that, because although he started off at first admitting to it by his own self-proclamation that he wasn't as strong as he was, and he was itching, and he really wanted to go back to his former glory, once he had done so, he was literally shown one-shotting Omen within literally seconds. So in the comment section below, we want to get your thoughts on the overall pragmatic view of Moro versus Beerus. Are you guys for Team Moro? Are you guys for Team Beerus? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. Again, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for your time. If you guys are new, hit that subscribe button. Give this video a big thumbs up if you guys enjoyed by slapping that like button down below. Follow Taurus and Emish. I will leave their links located down in the description box below. Thank you all so much for your time, and we'll be seeing each and every single one of you guys down in the comment section below. Have a great day, everybody, and take care. Peace. And a quick little reminder before you guys go, if you guys are unaware, I do have a second gaming channel located down in the description box below, so be sure to head on over to Unreal Royale and hit that subscribe button along with turning on all notifications, as to there, you guys will find all different kinds of gaming content that you will not get to find on UnrealEntGaming, titles and video games such as Grand Theft Auto, Call of Duty, Gears of War, Dragon Ball Z Dokkan Battle, Dragon Ball Z Legends, Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 3, Minecraft, Blair Witch, and many other retro games on that channel. So if you guys are into gaming, then make sure you guys subscribe over on Unreal Royale. I want to thank you all so much for your time, and I'll catch you all in the next one.
This is the Galactic Emperor of the Universe, and of course I'm here to tell you to subscribe to UnrealEntGaming.
Also follow UnrealEntGaming on these social media platforms to stay connected at all times. And if you don't, then very soon you will all be dead! Oh, did someone say UnrealEntGaming? Oh my god.
The fuck's up, on? Put on some clothes!
Well, why don't you put on any clothes?
What? I don't need clothes, but Jesus Christ, that's huge! What, Broly?
Freezer.
Uh-oh.
Prepare to die!
But once you get video, lots of likes, or Bill will turn you into chocolate! Vados, get over here! Tell these mortals that I'm the biggest UnrealEntGaming fan. This is my moment. I'm a part of his notification squad. Universe 7 can have all the fun. I just want the food.
And don't forget to leave a comment on this video. Show some love for the best community on YouTube.
Kakarota!